Mr. Curry, would you lead us in prayer?
Absolutely. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you. We thank you for this evening. We thank you for this ability to lead. We ask that you, excuse me, bless this board, bless our community, bless our students as we return back to school. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I recommend approval of the agenda dated September the 15th, 2020.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval for the agenda dated September 15th, 2020. Any discussion? We do have one change. We need to amend that. We're going to be doing an executive session after this meeting, so you need to readjust your motion to amend the.
To amend the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. I recommend approval to amend the agenda dated September the 15th, 2020.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval to amend the agenda dated September 15th, 2020 to include an executive session. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Informational items. Item A, capital plan alignment presentation. Mr. Smith from Schneider Electric.
I'm not Mr. Smith, by the way, but I did want to introduce Mr. Todd Smith. He is the sales team leader with Schneider, and what we invited him to come into today, we talked about last time, was just a recap of Phase 1 and 2 with Schneider and their energy savings that they helped us earn, talk about the savings that we have earned over the last few years, and then what's next and how can they help us in the future. So I was going to turn it over to Todd and let him explain that to you. Probably 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay?
Thank you. That feels better. It is so good to see everybody again here today. Boy, this room has changed a lot over the years. I remember my first time in here was 2013, and so it's been a long time coming. I've been working with Schneider Electric now. I'm on my 16th year, so Alabama K-12 has certainly been home to me and our company. When I moved out here in 2005 with a U-Haul from Texas, I didn't know a soul, and now we have 100 employees working in Alabama serving Alabama K-12. So we really appreciate all of your support, because without your project, it really was the springboard for our success. And so, as Joe talked about, I just wanted to give you a quick recap on how that project's doing, and then talk a little bit about what we've been looking into with the district over the last few months. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I'll also save time at the end for questions as well. So, as a recap, Madison County Schools and Schneider Electric, we partnered together really in 2013 was when y'all had been looking at energy initiatives over the course of probably 3 or 4 years. You had several companies in who had talked to you. You never really had a good confidence with a lot of them, but based on the research and references y'all had checked into, you said, hey, I think Schneider might be a good solution. And so in 2013, we started designing a project that was fast-tracked for the first 11 schools. And in that, we were able to address some pretty critical HVAC renovations that had to be done as part of Phase 1. As we finished design on Phase 1, we moved into Phase 2 design as we started construction on Phase 1. All construction for Phase 1 and Phase 2 totaled to around $31 million of improvements for the school system. That construction finished in 2016. Of those improvements, you made lighting upgrades, you made massive automation upgrades. I talked about some heavy mechanical upgrades. You had building envelope improvements that made your buildings tighter and kept the humidity out and kept the cold air and hot air out. And then you also had some water upgrades that we worked through. And then, of course, you had our partnership where we projected that you would reduce your energy usage by 40%, which was massive. It's still to date one of the highest reductions we've seen in the state, and then a 30% cost reduction. So all in all, we had a pretty big commitment back to the district for what we were to achieve. In this, we've worked with our partnership. We've pursued the Green Ribbon Award at Legacy Elementary, which I thought was awesome award. You're one of the only schools, or maybe the only school in Alabama that has gotten it. There may be a couple others over the years, but there's only 40 awarded annually across the United States. I believe we're in pursuit of our second. And then our team, you're very familiar with Corey and Kayla and a bunch of other people who help support your operations staff and your finance staff in terms of how the buildings are operating. And we consult on new construction and help you guys figure out the best ways to be the most efficient that you can be. So I will mention one of the things that we're doing that you'll see is an electric car charging station here at the Board of Ed. I know we've been talking about it for about a year, but I checked with them, and our goal is to have it implemented by October here. And so there's a picture of it right there. It'll look, the branding will look a little bit different. I think it'll have a Madison County Schools logo along with a small Schneider logo, but it'll be pretty cool to have that kind of front and center at the Board of Ed here. To talk about the school savings up to date, we just finished updating this. We've tried to impact all of how COVID has affected y'all, but you can see you're just under $8 million in total savings for the project, which is just an awesome, awesome achievement. The black line represents when the guarantee started, which was when construction ended, and so you can see year over year that increases, and then the green is the actual savings, and you can see it kind of fluctuates a little bit every year, and that depends on the performance of the schools. And so we've been tracking that accurately, over the last several years. I believe to date, your guarantee, I can't quite read it over there. I think it's over 5 million, and we've achieved over 8 million. So you guys are doing very well, and we're very excited about that. We always have certain schools that, we work on. I think once every 2 months, we scrub through 2 of your schools very in depth to figure out performance metrics on what we can do better. And then the rest of them we do, optimization, make sure that things are running as they should be. So you guys kind of have that protection in how you're operating. To talk a little bit, just a quick recap on what we've done and how we do it for school systems across the state, and that'll segue into what we've been looking into. But some of the 3 main reasons why districts are trusting us today are because they don't have enough of what I call 3 different things, in their repertoire, and that's time, money, and expertise. And what I mean by that is no district has enough time to take on everything that they want to, and we can bring that time to the table. We can also bring the money to the table because we help save money and we create revenue streams to be able to do additional work with operational money that you're currently spending. And then finally, we bring expertise to the table because we live and breathe this every day, and it's your responsibility every day to educate kids, so we feel like we can bring a lot to the table on that end. With these, we feel like there's 5 areas and priorities that Schneider helps address for K-12 school systems. Number 1 is safe, secure, and productive learning environments. That's always the top of the list for everybody. We feel like number 2 really is student enrichment and community engagement. So our partnerships with school systems, no matter what they are, we try to really do and align with the school district's mission and vision. Number 3, obviously, is technology that supports 21st learning, and that couldn't be more prevalent today with virtual learning. Anything that we can do on the IT side, telecommunications side, has been really big for most clients. But 4 and 5 are really where the core of our offerings are, and that's facility needs, deferred maintenance, and operational efficiency. So that being said, the role of what Schneider has served for Madison County schools and other school systems across the state is, number 1, we obviously have design and engineering. Number 2, we have the construction management to handle the projects that school districts have us bite off. Number 3, we have the financial services, and then we have the support services and performance guarantee of how we work. And then number 6 is going to be the public affairs and outreach. And so those are all under our umbrella on how we work as a company in K-12. So over the last kind of spring and summer, during this whole COVID ordeal we've all been living through, we were actually analyzing your school system to say, how are you running today versus what we're implementing today on our latest and greatest projects? And so we were specifically looking at some control automation upgrades that we've been doing. We've also been looking at LED lighting, which is now kind of a standard offering for a lot of school systems out there. You can see by this, you're currently spending just over $3.7 million on your utilities. and you're running at $1.41 a square foot as a district. Now, $1.41 for a major district like y'all is efficient. We would consider you definitely more efficient than middle of the road because of everything that you've done, but we do still think that there's some improvement that can be had, and it's because of some of these later technologies. And so we looked at what would it be like if we did do the LED lighting and do some controls upgrades, and then we were talking both with Karen and Joe about what you're doing with your capital plan and how we might be able to be involved. So of the $3.7 million you currently spend on utilities, we estimate another 9 to 10% could be generated from the LED lighting, as well as the control automation upgrades. And so that would generate somewhere between $320,000 to $395,000 per year for the life of the equipment. So that would generate somewhere around $8 to $10 million as the life cycle of the equipment goes. Now you can see in the proposed solution that we have for this kind of next, what I'll call phase 3, is the LED lighting automation upgrades, and then some rate services analysis just to see if there's some quick things that we can do to set you up maybe on some more cost-effective rates, some more easily negotiated contracts on services. Those are things that we can do for real quick things to save money. There are some potential solutions from that capital plan. We're still all kind of talking about what that could be, but maybe some of your major HVAC projects. I always think about this Board of Education building. Y'all are still on this old HVAC system here. This would be a wonderful building to have on a new system. You still have a few of those around the district that need to be taken care of. You've got some roofing projects that are probably going to coincide with some of that HVAC. A lot of schools systems that hire us for major HVAC projects also have us do the roof, because sometimes it makes sense to do the roof while you're doing the HVAC and not wait one on the other. And then just any other capital projects where we feel like we can drive savings. Now, the goal of us being able to roll these into some sort of a phase is not only can we leverage the lighting and the automation and some of the rate negotiations, but if we design the HVAC right and we design the roofing right, that's also going to generate cost savings. And so we can only add to that amount that can be driven. And the goal would be to stretch your bond dollars further. So you guys, I think, received 23 million. I know you haven't gotten the final amount yet of where you're at. But the goal would be to take those dollars further by generating operational cost savings over the next set of terms. And of course, we would be responsible for those. We would track and measure and verify that all of those would be there. So you'd create your own revenue stream. You'd strengthen, the value of your dollar. So, any questions with that right there before I move on? Okay. We did put together, the report and the analysis that kind of shows by moving to the LED solution and doing the controls upgrades, that's the basis of what it generates. A little bit about our track record since y'all last hired us. We've now probably worked with about a third of the school systems across the state, several county commissions, cities, several state agencies. We've done just over $300 million worth of construction here in Alabama. We have around $340 million commitment back to our clients. The things that I think that are really important for y'all to know that you made the right choice is across our industry, we've been named the #1 energy services company in the nation for the last 4 years. So you guys are working with a good one. And we've done just over 800 projects across the U.S. In over almost 30 years of construction, $2.4 billion. We've never had a lawsuit, litigation, settlement, or arbitration. That's a lot of construction. Y'all know the construction business, and so we really do try to stay true to our promises and take care of our clients. So thank you for your support, because you've allowed us to do what we do every day. And I think the community engagement and public image is another aspect of this that I think you could take to the next level. When we originally engaged in 2013, we've really added kind of a robust offering around branding, public engagement, even some STEAM curriculum, some areas where we can get involved and we can get students and teachers involved in our initiatives to bring the project to life. So these are just a couple examples of what you'll see. We created a website for University of North Alabama, did some great videos for Blount County Schools, did some, if you guys have ever been to downtown Franklin, we did 20 of the 106 facilities for Williamson County Commission. We've got some great signage all throughout historic Franklin about how they're committing to sustainability. But anyways, I just wanted to give that overview and then see if you had any questions. But what I think that Joe and Karen and others we're all kind of talking about is, where could we fit on that capital plan? We know, of course, we could never do all of it, but there may be some select projects, some major, endeavors that would make sense for us to engage in, because we would bring, the design, the program management, the engineering, the construction, and that way you're kind of getting that seamless effort with those projects. So, what questions do y'all have?
We have HVAC on the plan. I don't have the plan right in front of me, but we don't have lighting, right, on the plan.
We did add it, but it's past where we're saying funded.
Yeah.
Line item 34 on the capital plan. We did add that in there as a non-funded right now because we're just talking. We were still waiting on the analysis to come back on their study. But like you say, several of the schools, we may be looking at a complete HVAC. Others where they might not would fit in would be some single unit replacements. And that's where we would try to find out where do they best fit to help us, and then they'll guarantee the savings. We still have to go out. If we go and design this building, we still have to pay for design services.
We have a number of HVAC.
All the same.
Okay.
So here it's all in-house. And then at the end, they're also guaranteeing their savings at the end for us, where most are not. They can do the job, but they're not going to guarantee any savings to us, if that makes sense.
And that's why we think there's probably plenty of projects where you just kind of, do your own projects with some smaller systems. But some of the major ones that are going to require a lot of construction coordination, a lot of planning, potentially summer, Christmas constructions, those sorts of things, nights, weekends, holidays, it definitely makes sense to have somebody like us involved, because we oversee that, on a daily basis across the state. Some of the smaller projects are definitely things that are already in your wheelhouse to handle, so.
The idea is that we want to open the idea that with these projects, if they make sense after they do an analysis of a school, maybe for HVAC, or look at this building, if it makes sense to go to Schneider, of course, all of these capital plans, after they go out, come back to you for approval. If it makes sense, then we would approve that and go with it. If it doesn't make sense, they wouldn't want to do it, we wouldn't want to do it. And then if we can generate enough savings, I think that's when we start talking about the lighting and the control upgrade. We're not trying to push that into that area that we've already talked about.
Yeah, and with the lighting and controls, those were obviously energy-focused items that we brought to the table that we thought would make sense financially. And so our thought process is, if you can generate $8 to $10 million off of those investments, if you coupled in some of the HVAC and roofing, you might be able to generate 15 or 20 or more, depending on, the efficiencies of the design. And that will allow you to kind of grow your amount of your state bond issue. You're going to be more powerful with your dollars if you're creating revenue off your investments. So,
I guess, though, if it's unfunded, we can't, I guess it's confusing me. We want to do it, but it's unfunded. So how do you close the gap?
I think that's what we're still working on. We did the analysis and we had the conversations. I think we just wanted to talk to you tonight, give you an update, and then, figure out if there's a way to move forward. But there's
But we
plenty
have
of
to submit the
opportunity.
plan, right? So,
We can amend this plan.
Yeah.
We just wanted it on the plan.
okay.
So when you look at those savings, we could leverage those savings and do the, it's estimated at $4.5 million. So we definitely wanted it on the plan at the
Okay,
This plan can be,
Yeah.
we could amend it tomorrow after we approve it tonight if we need to.
Right, right. Yeah, that plan is every school system creates that plan as kind of a roadmap. They submit to the state of here are the things that we would like to do. Very few districts get to all of those items. There's usually things that continue to get, pushed on until funding becomes available. So we just wanted to let you know that we're talking, with the administration and exploring ways that we might be able to help y'all get a little bit further on that list than you would if we weren't involved.
as far as the controls go, are we, like the softwares type stuff, how vulnerable are we from that?
How, I'm sorry?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable. So there's been a few construction projects that have been completed kind of while we were in design and construction that we didn't have our hands in really. And some of those schools definitely have limitations on how they're running. There's a few of them that we would consider, running outside of efficient parameters. And we don't have the ability to tie those things through. And then also, there's upgrades in terms of just the automation servers. It's like, your iPhone or anything else. You just need to get the latest software and technologies on there. And so if that weren't to happen for several years, there would start to be limitations within the system. So it does make sense for y'all to make an investment in those areas because it's going to help, you preserve your effectiveness and efficiency as a district. But no vulnerability in regards to security or anything of that sort. It's more of just operational efficiency.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's good to see you all. And hopefully we'll see each other a lot if we get back to conferences and things like that. But we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Item B, second budget hearing. Ms. O'Bannon?
Calm down.
Good afternoon. You should all have your booklet in front of you. Let me get to my notes. So the booklet is for the official second public budget hearing for fiscal year 2021. And after the first presentation, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but this book format is best for including the required staffing sheets that you'll find in the back. That requirement is from the State Department of Education. So you'll see in the back, beginning on page 45, just for you to know, and following page 45, the staffing summary sheets that covers our 2,347 employees. The first page is a system summary, and the remaining is the breakdown. You're familiar with these by facility and by school. So the booklet's the best way I can handle that. So let's move to page 4. I don't have a presentation tonight, by the way, for all the visitors. Todd Smith's our only visitor, right? But we're just following along this booklet. Page 4 is the summary budget page, reflecting all fund types. The general operations are under the general fund type, as you'll see, with the projected ending fund balance of $20,786,000. We have a total operating budget of $173.9 or $174 million, and total budget for all fund types of $230 million. Let's go to page 5 quickly. We talked about this at the last meeting. We discussed this proposal for general fund in great detail with the projected beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures, and the projected ending fund balance that we just saw in that financial statement. So the projected $20,786,956 includes an estimated $4.5 million reserved for 1 month operating expenses, $2 million set aside for debt service in this particular fund type, and then an estimated excess reserve equal to 9 days or $4.2 million. Again, as I mentioned last time, we may need that in this fiscal year to cover any shortfalls in the child nutrition program, any shortfalls in the IDIB program, but primarily child nutrition program, as we go through the blended learning, remote learning, and depending on student participation in those programs. The revenues are obviously not coming in as well as before the pandemic, and we're still have the same expenditures or overhead cost. So as we talk more about this projection and the local revenue projections, let's move to page 18, please. As I explained at the last meeting, we have a budgeted and probable 2% increase for property tax revenues. And I think I may have confused everyone on the sales tax revenue projections when I said they were budgeted at level funding. So I added some wording here and a couple more pages so that I could further explain that. The $13 million for the half-cent countywide and the $10.7 million for the 1-cent district sales tax, these are level funded projections based on this year's current revenues, 2020. So let's look at the next 2 pages so I can explain it a little bit better. The first one, the first page, represents the half-cent sales tax collections. And we just collected July's, believe it or not, on September 11th. They were early because it's usually around the 20th of the month before we receive these. So through July, we were actually up an average of 7% for the half-cent tax. Then I conservatively projected $1 million for August, $1 million for September when comparing to the prior year. So you can see at the bottom, that would bring us to a total in red at the bottom, $13 million. So that's how I came up with a $13 million projection and said that was level funded. But if the collections for fiscal year 2021, if we still realize a 7% increase as we have this year, that would add another $900,000 to our actual revenues. So, and we could make an adjustment in the budget amendment for additional expenses that may be necessary, or we could carry that over at the end of the fiscal year.
That's interesting.
Just with the pandemic and uncertainties, I didn't budget a 7% increase. But again, the budget's just a tool, so it can be amended, and better yet, we can just show those positive variances when we're comparing budgeted revenues to actual revenues. Let's look at the 1 cent. This is very unusual. We've talked about it a little bit already, but through July, the 1 cent is averaging a 10% increase. I meant to put it on that page. You may want to make notes of those, but I would say out in the district, we're buying a lot of food because people are cooking at home. Not as much commercial business, obviously, in the district. So again, I estimated for August and September, $800,000 for August, $850,000 for September to compare with the prior year. I'd already estimated July because I didn't know that we would have that information, and I also budgeted $800,000. Look at the outlier for July, 26% increase compared to July of last year in the district. So that is definitely an outlier, but
Face of common sense.
so that with the estimates I have and the actual we've already collected, that comes to a projected $10.9 million. I budgeted 10.7. Again, if we average a 10% or 11% increase over actual revenues this year, that would add an additional $1.2 million that we would receive. But we don't know. Should folks start going back to restaurants, and
Do we not get the same amount from a restaurant sale?
No, I'm saying there's not many restaurants in the district. So if they start going back into restaurants and they're not buying all this food in the district, that's really what's happened. We're
For the
seeing.
1%.
Yes, ma'am, for the 1%.
That and Lowe's, the big box stores, I'm sure, Lowe's, Walmart.
Right. So, but again, we'll have some options to consider. It's just hard to know during the uncertain times. But the good news is we're doing well in Huntsville, Madison County. We are doing
I
very
think we're
well.
doing better than we probably expected.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As I've said all along, as these come in and I've been reporting them to you.
So if you,
But I was really shocked by the July collections in the district.
so if you eat in a restaurant in Huntsville City, we still get the half.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I would attribute it more to more people coming.
That's part of it, but I don't know if the people are moving into the district. That may very well be, but I know more folks are buying groceries, so that's probably more people, more groceries, more. But because we don't have a lot of obviously commercial sales in the district.
I'll tell you, restaurants are crowded. I mean, they are full. I mean, they're full at the capacity that they're allowed to be at, 50%, 20%,
Right.
whatever they're at.
But whatever the reason, our district tax is up more than our half-cent countywide.
Yeah.
I think when you see the ballpark thing over there in Madison City go in, the new Publix, I mean, those are the reasons, I think. It's because of the growth in Madison, because we get that share from that.
Yes, ma'am. Based on ADM, we do. Our share with that. But I just wanted you to see where the numbers I gave you that's in the budget right now, in the original budget, and then what it might look like if we actually met the same increase compared to 2019 to 2020, what that difference could be. Any other questions on this before we go on to the federal section for a few things we didn't cover last time?
On page 12, every school's positive except one. Is there a reason for that?
Are you talking about on teacher units?
Locally funded units.
Well, there's 3 that are not positive. Monrovia Middle, Monrovia Elementary, and Lynn Fanning.
Well, I was looking at the end, the total column. But yeah, you're, okay.
So if their class sizes and their staffing looks really good, and it's a half unit under what the state share or gives, we don't add a full unit there. They're just under slightly.
Yeah, everybody comes out positive in the total, but one, it just seems a little odd.
Yeah, but like Riverton Elementary, with their divisors, you know, they have the lowest ratio for teacher to student, and they still earn those units. And in many cases, we will move what they've earned to like Riverton Intermediate, where the divisors are not as spread out as quite as easily and as good for their staffing. But if you look at some of these with the negative, they have better class sizes than the others. So we either move it to a cluster school or they remain under by a small percentage, under 50%. And if you want to see the individual staffing sheets, we can provide those for any school that you'd like to see. Anything else in the general fund type? These pages pretty much mirror the presentation from last time, the slides. Okay, if not, let's move over to page 27. You saw these allocations in our special revenue fund type, And we went over the three major programs, which is Idea B, Title I, as well as the Child Nutrition Program. None of this has changed, no tweaking or anything there. That's the allocations. But let's move to page 29, Title I. I didn't have a complete breakdown for you last time. So on page 29, you can see the allocation at the top, and you were asking about how we came to the school allocation amount. So you can see the set-asides that come off the top, as well as the administrative cost. It's capped at 15%. And so that's what makes up the costs that come off the top. And under administrative cost, we've broken it down by expenditure line item. So we come back to the local school allocations of $2,264,000. So that's how that's calculated and what that looks like. The majority of the school allocations are used for personnel cost, whether they're adding a resource teacher, a social worker, a class size reduction teacher, aides. But you can see on the next page, as we discussed last time, this is the percent ranking for our 11 Title I schools. And the funding is based on the number of students. We didn't discuss Title II last time, page 31. That allocation's up slightly and has been the last several years. We have, in the budget, 4 slots for teachers. We've already filled 3 of those where we had the most immediate needs when you're looking at your teacher to student ratio. So a kindergarten unit at Central School, a kindergarten unit at New Hope Elementary, a first grade unit at Madison County Elementary. And when we're back into, there's a lot of students and families that are still elected for remote learning. So we're holding that 1 unit to be determined as to where we'll place that unit. And then the remaining funds are used for professional development. I've covered everything. I know we're going to talk about, look at the capital plan and approving that. Is there anything in the debt service fund type or capital projects fund type that you'd like for me to go over? If not, I don't have anything else. Any questions?
The money that we have to spend by deadline, is all that been spent?
Are you talking about the other federal funds?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We haven't met the deadline yet. Let me go to that page. Okay, for the CARES Act ESSER funds, I'll send you a breakdown of how that money has been spent so far. We have through September 30th, 2022. And we have a remaining balance with those funds of $1.3 million. And I can share with you a breakdown of how that money has been spent so far. But these are the general categories for the expenses there. Some are like for summer reading camp next summer, additional instructional assistance to meet some of the learning gaps during remote learning. Then the GEAR funds, this is a new application that hasn't yet been approved by the state, but it's earmarked. So those 3 categories, well, actually the bus Wi-Fi, since we've already covered that with our Facebook donations, that will be moved to the remote learning and decreasing learning gaps, and we haven't spent any of that money yet. But the deadline is September 30, 2022. It covers multiple years. For the next page, those Corona relief funds, the state has already received those. And so it's on a cost reimbursement basis. As we spend, we request the funds at the end of the month. For the remote learning devices and software, our balance is $106,000. So we've spent most all of that. We're trying to spend that first since we have until December 15th. Then for the educational health and wellness supplies, as Mr. Malone will go over a lot of those in just a moment. We have spent the majority of those funds. The $1 million, a little over $1 million is being used for nurse and health supplies. The remaining $375,000, will be used. We can ask for reimbursement, as I mentioned before, for teachers' time worked. Nurses' time worked. So from September 1 through December, we can request reimbursement. And what that will do is free up those local funds that we use for nurses' salaries. Of course, this will be the first month we are asking for reimbursement on that. So we still have all of that $375,000 to request. But the majority has been spent for the nurse supplies and health supplies, as Mr. Malone will cover. And again, that one has a deadline also of December. So we're trying to get that money squared away first.
So Bannon, on page 37, the local school bank loans. Last year, the schools received some funds that they were able to pay for some of those loans. I think you mentioned that last time.
Right.
Do you know how much that will be?
Yes, sir. From our state advancement and technology funds, we set aside again, it's not as much, but we set aside again out of that $4.4 million, $1.1 million for our local schools. So each high school will receive $100,000, Sparkman 9, $35,000, middle schools, $50,000, elementary schools, $15,000, and then the PACE and Virtual Academy, that campus, $15,000. So the way we did that is we took $500,000 for our building insurance that qualifies to be covered from the state monies. So we freed up that $500,000 that will go to the schools. And the remaining, I believe it's $560,000, will come from technology department. So we'll still have 1.9, almost $2 million for additional devices, software, anything that might be needed in IT.
Okay.
But that's where we pulled that. And they can use that, again, for bank loans, technology, obviously, facility upgrades for athletics and otherwise. And also, we added this time virtual learning needs, but I don't believe that'll be a category they'll need since we have the CARES Act money for that.
Okay.
We are overnighting this thing because it's actually due today. So it's under administrative items for approval. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'll be happy to
It'll be
send.
signed and dated by.
Yes, it is. I'll be happy to send you any staffing sheets or any detail that you might want for supporting documentation.
Any additional questions of Karen? Any comments? Again, thank you, Karen. Always an excellent job, and we appreciate your hard work, and as well as your staff. They work just as hard. Thank you.
Informational item C, discussion of Anna Lynn's law and updates to the Madison County Board policy. Mr. Traywick?
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. If you know me and know my distaste for numbers, you would understand when I say this that I would much prefer to present the budget than have to have this presentation here tonight. But unfortunately, in our current realities, this is something that we do have to discuss. Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for sending this out earlier this afternoon for the board members with an updated proposed policy. What you're going to see tonight is just a very short training that we would need to provide to the staff members across the district who will be responsible for overseeing students. That is pretty much everybody, and so we will need to add this to Compliance Director, which is our program that we use to fulfill all of the mandatory trainings each year. Annalyn's Law is governed by Alabama Act 18-528, as Ms. Thompson said earlier, is commonly referred to as Annalyn's Law. It's governing how the local school boards govern juvenile sex offenders within the school system. So, let me find my presentation clicker. Any Clorox wipes? I'm just kidding. All right. The main purpose of this law and this policy that we need to look at is basically to continue to create a safe school environment for all students and staff. How does a student, a juvenile, receive this designation? Basically, a student will be adjudicated and designated as a juvenile sex offender, as a low-risk sex offender within the court system, And once that designation is placed on a student, they are allowed to return to our school system. However, we are charged with having a policy in place on how we monitor those situations. There are basically three responsibilities that we as a school system will have in terms of how we handle these types of situations. The first main responsibility is we have to develop a supervision team. And within that supervision team, it will consist of an administrator, teachers for that students, counselors, and the nurse within the schools, and any potential coaches, perhaps, if that student is allowed to participate in extracurricular activities. Then all of those persons that are directly responsible for overseeing that student would in turn become part of the supervision team for that student. The supervision team has to meet twice a year. And obviously, with any other team that is put together, or any other plan rather, just like with an IEP, a 504 plan, an individualized health care plan, at any point in time, a parent or team member deems necessary to have a meeting, then that meeting can be held. And the students, the supervision team would create an individualized student safety plan. And that student safety plan, again, would be met to discuss on a minimum of 2 times per year. All right, the individuals that are required, those are teachers responsible for implementing that individualized student safety plan, and that includes all persons that are involved in overseeing that student at any point in time. If there are consequences, if there are violations to that individualized student safety plan, then there would be consequences imposed on that student per the Code of Conduct and the board policy. One of the main things that we would want to keep in mind is that confidentiality and student safety for that particular student would have to be the utmost importance for us as a school system, and so we would, of course, conduct ourselves as administrators within each school. We would make sure that that student is being protected and provided the same rights as all the other students within the school. However, we do have to make sure, though, that we are providing supervision for that student. And so anytime that a school official is providing supervision, it has to be made sure that they are providing that supervision discreetly and in a manner that does not call attention to that student. So how will we know when a child has been adjudicated and designated as a low-risk juvenile sex offender? It will be the responsibility of the local law enforcement agency. Madison County Sheriff's Department would contact Superintendent Perkins, let him know that this child has received that designation, and then in turn, Mr. Perkins would contact me and/or the principal, and we would move from that point forward in scheduling or organizing the student supervision team to develop an individualized student safety plan for that student. Any questions so far? I think I have covered the highlights here. I've got at the bottom there, if pending approval. If someone needs more information about it, if approved, it would become policy number 6.28 under the student section of the board policy.
Is there a clear definition of low risk versus high risk?
Low risk for a repeat offender. So the judge, as Ms. Thompson said, the judge, one of the definitions in the law is stating it as this individual is deemed to have a low risk of being considered a repeat offender. And so that would be the main difference in the low risk designation as opposed to not getting that designation.
So if we had a low-risk juvenile sex offender at a school and the person that they offended was at that same school, would there be a mechanism for transfer, or would we actually keep them in that same school with the person, the victim?
Based on prior history, Mr. Curry, I would say that would be something that we could definitely look at from a board policy standpoint, from a unique situation transfer request. Perhaps that would be something that you guys could potentially consider. It is also, though, our responsibility, though, to, within each school, to ensure that those students are, that we put everything in place to keep those students separated as much as possible.
But this policy wouldn't really control that mechanism?
It would not specify that they have to be separated, no, sir.
The policy actually says, in the event the victim attends the same school as the student, the plan should include measures to reduce the likelihood of victim and student interaction. So that would contemplate that they would stay at the same school. But
Okay.
there could be circumstances
With the parents.
where otherwise.
But the way I understand it, we don't have a choice on whether or not to have a policy, correct?
You're required by the
No, ma'am.
law to have a
It's
policy.
just how we
It's a
decide
law.
to word the policy.
That's right, yes, ma'am. And we are required to enforce this policy, provide the training beginning with the school year.
This is going to sound weird, but the law doesn't require the victim to remain at the school. If the parents choose to remove the child from school or ask for a transfer, we can grant that as necessary,
It's
right?
something you'd have to look at under one of your
Policies.
transfer policies.
Okay.
Certainly, that would be a unique situation.
Yeah.
We've considered things like that before, even before we had a policy,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? I would ask that we put this policy on the next board agenda for approval so that we can get that implemented as quickly as possible and provide that training to the teachers and staff and administrators.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Keith.
Thanks, Keith. All right, item D, reopening plan update. Mr. Malone?
Somebody asked me if I brought show and tell with me. I didn't really, but just to kind of help out on some explanations. So thank you, Board and Superintendent, to give me a few minutes to just talk a little bit about, I know on the agenda it says school reopening plan update, and this is specifically in the area of supplies and things that we were able to send to schools, teachers specifically, and then a couple of other people. And I'll go over several things, then obviously if you have any questions, and we'll give time for questions. So, and all of you guys have a copy of this. This is a spreadsheet of everything that has been sent to teachers, to schools, as of right now. I'll refer back to this a couple of times through this presentation. Everything has been sent to the schools except on column B. We're still in the middle of that one. We're almost finished with that one, with the large hand sanitizer. And I'll explain that as we get there. And also, everything that I'm going to discuss in the next couple of minutes, this is all supplies that we sent to the schools, and we sent, to the schools or to the teachers directly. There are a couple of other groups. This is in addition to 2 or 3 other things. This is in addition to what Nurse Stiles sent to the nurses, which I just listed that here too, and obviously I won't necessarily read every one of those, but she sent the mask and the gloves and things like that, and I do have the numbers on there. But the things I'm going to be discussing are in addition to what the nurses sent, and in addition to what Ms. Stump purchased for special education. So that's 2 separate groups, but those obviously were all taken care of as well. So then, kind of another little chart here that breaks down each one of these items and what has been sent and what we have for each one of those 2. And again, we don't necessarily have to read through all of these. We can refer back to this, but the following slides have pictures and exact numbers on them too. So we'll start then with hand sanitizer and what we sent to the schools and to the teachers with hand sanitizer. And basically, they kind of in 2 different categories, I guess you would say. This is more of the liquid, and I did bring these to actually look at too. But this is the gel hand sanitizer like this that we put in the front entrances of the schools. So each school got 2 of those dispensers, and they got 8 of the refills. We have another 8 refills available for them. We have those in the warehouse. So all that was delivered to the schools. We were able to partner up with Yellowhammer. They started producing hand sanitizer, which was wonderful for us, and they helped us out a lot on that. I guess the beauty of the Yellowhammer hand sanitizer is the fact that it is hand sanitizer, but it doubles as a disinfectant spray. So it's been great, and we've been able to buy that for teachers, been able to buy that for bus drivers and all of our employees as well. And those numbers are the most current numbers that we have on those. The smaller bottles, that's the 100 milliliter bottles, and then the 32-ounce bottles. And the other one, the 5-gallon dispenser, we sent all of those to schools too. Basically, I have, and it was on the other sheet. I'll actually go back to that. What we've done on that, every teacher, and I have another slide that actually shows what we sent to teachers, but it gets one of the large bottles, one of the small bottles, but then the schools have the refills for those as well. Okay, so that's what we send as far as hand sanitizer, the gel and the spray. Gloves, we purchased a large amount of gloves. Again, the spreadsheet has a breakdown of what we sent to each school, but we sent out 30,400 gloves throughout the district. Again, each school got a different amount depending on their population. So masks. A couple different categories of masks, I guess you could say. So we'll look at employees first. The county provided 8 of the masks, kind of like some of you guys have on tonight, with a Madison County logo. So we got 3 per employee of those. We've already sent out 2. We did keep 1 more in the warehouse, just as a reserve, and those will go to the teachers as well. And then the state provided 3 masks as well. We have delivered those 2. We're waiting on the additional 1 for that. It's already been ordered. We just don't have that yet, which leads us to the students. The state had let us know they were going to provide 3 per student. They have delivered 1, and we've sent that out to schools. We've ordered 2 more for those, and obviously we'll get those out as soon as they come in. But that's what we'll have for employees and for students. And then we had 20,000 total of the disposable masks. And we did the same thing with those. We distributed those among schools kind of based on population. And I guess I'm not doing as good of a job of showing the supplies, but each one of those, obviously, we have what we sent to the school.
Joe could be your Vanna White.
Well, I teased him about that, but I wasn't going to bring that up.
Just sitting there, isn't he?
Oh, you just sit there.
Yeah. I will show you this one, though, since we brought it up. The face shields, what we wanted to do, obviously, our students' health and, safety is the number one concern, but obviously our teachers as well. And, different teachers have different mindsets, I guess, on this as of right now, but at the same time, we want to make sure they have everything that they need, which might be mandated. Obviously, everybody's going to be wearing a mask, but we felt like some of them may want the face shields too. So what we did with that was bought enough for everyone, for all the teachers. We purchased 1,500 of these. And then we sent a survey to the principals to survey their teachers and said, survey your staff, how many of these would do you guys need? So we had 1,008 requests of these. So we've sent those out to all the teachers as well. So they do have those. There was another product we did the same thing to, and which was the desk shield, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So the foggers, we've talked about that quite a bit. I think you guys know most of this already, but just to let you know what they have. Each school has one of the backpack foggers, and they will be getting 2 of the smaller foggers as well, and that's what they're going to be using on the buses. Right now, they're using the backpack foggers. Each of the high schools actually have 2 of those as well. So,
And that's what they're using on the buses, or?
yeah, that's what they're using on the buses until the small ones come in. They're kind of using those for everything. But the smaller one is just a little easier to, I guess you say, navigate on the bus, So, but the custodians are using these daily right now, cleaning everything. Which and by the way, part of this, we wanted to make sure that the teachers have everything that they need and everybody has what they need. But we also want to make sure the teachers know, it's not their responsibility to clean and disinfect their rooms. However, we did want to provide them with enough stuff in case they want to hit some of the touch points and things like that. But in other words, we're not asking a teacher to strap that backpack sprayer on and disinfect their classroom. They can if they want to, but the custodian's probably going to be using it. They're using it pretty much all day right now. So that's what we have in the area of foggers. The thermometers, right now we've sent one to every teacher. So there is a thermometer in every teacher's hands right now. I did bring one of those. The smart temperature scanners, I didn't bring it over here, but there is one in the back of the room. So, and I put minimum of 2 per school. Almost every school has 2, but some of our larger schools, I think we have 4 of those at Sparkman. I think 3 at Buckhorn, but for the most part, everybody has at least 2 of those. The desk shields, so if you'll notice, it says 10,800 of those. We kind of bought those, I guess you say, in phases. In trying to decide what may be best to do, we first bought 800 of those. And that's actually even when our special needs students started coming back in, a few at a time. And this was another thing that we sent a survey out to the principals to survey their teachers and said, would you guys want one of these maybe for maybe say a small group, if a kindergarten teacher might have a little small group that they want to work with, would they prefer one of these? So we ordered 800 of them, and I think we had 869 requests. So we obviously needed to order a few more. Well, then through several discussions, we decided that we were going to purchase those for every student in the district, K-5. So those actually have been, they were supposed to ship tomorrow and be here Friday. We actually got word they shipped yesterday, so we're hoping that they arrive tomorrow. So that we purchased enough, obviously, to make up that 69 so that other teachers can have them that requested them. And then every student K-5, and we did purchase enough too for some special ed needs and things like that as well. So we should have plenty of those.
With the shields, do you still have the spacing, or is it with the shields the kids can sit closer together?
Well, we're still saying space to the extent feasible, but yes, I mean, especially like I said with the smaller students, with the elementary students, they're going to be at their desk. I mean, each one will be on their desk.
Right.
But it allows the teacher to, at a small group table, to kind of, I guess it may protect the teacher more than it protects the students at the small group table. But at the same time, if she wants the students to bring theirs up there, they can do that too. Yeah. So this next slide, it says the PH7Q. You've probably heard a lot of us talk about the PH7Q. I don't know if you've ever seen the PH7Q, but it's one of the most popular things that we have going right now, simply because it's a very good product for, it's the most economical product that we have. But just to kind of let you guys know how much we sent, that's a bottle of the PH7Q. We sent 4 cases. of that. I'm sorry, we sent one case per school that has 4 bottles in that. However, and I tried to throw some numbers together here, one of those, one bottle will create 32 gallons of solution. So one case that we sent would create 128 gallons. So again, we feel like that's the best, I guess you say, bang for the buck. Now, teachers like to use this too because it's more versatile. It doubles as hand sanitizer and disinfectant. But again, to give them the option of what they can use.
So that's just disinfectant.
Well, yes, ma'am. It's just as effective for sure. But we don't use that as hand sanitizer though. Is the only thing. Right. Yeah.
So what goes in the fogger? Does the PHQ-7Q go in the fogger as well?
It does. So actually, the foggers can use 2 different products.
Okay.
It uses a tablet form as well. But yes, the PH7Q can use that, can do that, and that's typically what we use. It's equally as effective, and it leaves less of a residue on things we've noticed. So that's what we've been using in the foggers everywhere.
Okay.
And then paper towels, so right now every teacher will have a roll of paper towels. Actually, I think the next slide will explain that. Yeah, each teacher will have a roll of paper towels, and then they'll have the larger bottle, the smaller bottle. And remember, this is in addition to some of those other things, and it's also in addition, the other group that I didn't mention it's in addition to what the schools already have. Talked to several different schools today and who have, a plentiful supply of a lot of these things already at their schools. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what we sent in addition to what's already in the school and what some of the other programs were sending.
Do you have any kind of estimation as to when you'll have to reorder? How much you have, how much time, what you currently have in stock?
Yeah. The only thing that I would say we actually calculated an estimation on was the PH7Q, and we figure we've got about a 6-month reserve of that. It's just hard to tell with some of the other things how quickly they're going to be using it,
Yeah.
Now, we're trying to stay on top of ordering more, too, because as everybody knows, it seems like everything we try to order has a longer wait period right now than normally so. But again, the thing with the teachers, this is what they're getting, but we wanted to make them and everyone aware, too, is we have a plentiful supply of refill for those. So so like I said, everybody's getting the larger bottles. I think we've received already over half of those. If so far, if the teachers haven't received these yet, and we want to give them more of the small bottles for right now until these come in, then we'll certainly do that. But we want everybody to know they can continue to refill them as much as, even if they have a small one, they can refill it as much as, Every school has basically 15 gallons there's one at the school, and then 2 more available at the warehouse that we can send to the schools per school. So. And I think I covered everything on the table, everything in the slideshow, and tried to be pretty specific on how much we sent. But anybody have any questions on product or?
How durable are the desk shields?
Okay, that's a good question. And the reason I say that's a good question because we looked at so many, and I looked at what some of the other systems did as well. And we feel like this was by far the most durable. In fact, some of the things that I saw at other systems and other items that we saw was literally this little piece of plastic here. They had 3 of those on the desk, and just was not impressed with that at all. But this, what we liked, was the fact that it is thicker and durable, and we can spray cleaner on it as well. So we feel like it's durable and easily cleanable as well. So.
You talked about residue, residue. So like if you spray that, how much residue is going to stay on there, and so it's not clear?
Right. So when I mention residue, that's basically once you fog or disinfect an area. So we sent a video to all the principals and plant managers and custodians the other day on how to properly use the foggers. And basically, and I guess I'll tell you a little bit about how much time it takes to do that too. If you use the fogger properly,
We're seeing right now several of our, actually, we've had principals that have gone in and kind of did some field testing and just to help their custodians on how many rooms they could do. We had some principals that went in and they fogged an entire classroom. One of them said they were doing them an average of 57 seconds. One was doing an average of 30 seconds. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but the reason I say that is if you do it properly, see, that's an electrostatic charged product is what's happening. So all you really have to do is kind of spray it in the air and it will go where it needs to go. So what happens is, though, if they didn't watch the video, or if they don't know, if they don't do it properly, then they're going to go here and just kind of douse everything down and soak it, and then it's going to leave more of the residue that you're talking about. So done properly, especially with the P87Q, it leaves a very minimal residue. So I guess then that might lead to question, well, then do they have to wipe that off behind? I think the more and more they do it and they see that, oh yeah, if I do this the right way, it's not going to leave a residue, then they won't have to. And I've sprayed it too, just kind of practicing, even with like hand sanitizer and stuff, and it wipes right off and hasn't created a problem.
I've used it also, and it hasn't left a significant residue in anything that I've put it on.
Yeah.
Well, I just know with small children, it's going to be important that the teacher's going to, with the mask and all of that, when they're hearing sounds, if a teacher could sit behind that and they could see his or her mouth as she's working with, phonics and things, it would be very helpful. But
Yeah.
they're at a
Obviously,
disadvantage
it needs
with
to
the
stay clear.
mask on.
Yeah. That's right.
And I know the face shields, they've used some of those for that, but.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Jeff, thank you. When I spoke with Alan about this presentation tonight, and we were looking at that slide up there that you put up first, I thought, I think we could probably do this a little bit better and have the product out in front so everybody can see it, so that we can see what the teachers and the staff are getting and what everybody at home is looking at. So I appreciate you kind of jumping through the hoops to get that out here tonight. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay,
I did have a question, one of the emails that we saw about cleaning the, the Chromebooks.
Mm-hmm.
What is the procedure for that?
So I actually sent a document out yesterday or today. Actually, I was going to see if Mr. Wilson was here. He sent a document out specifically on cleaning Chromebooks. It was very detailed. I sent another one, kind of, going over that again. But we actually sent information to teachers on how to use every one of these products on different surfaces. We talked about doorknobs, we talked about, tables, but we talked about Chromebooks and any type of electronic. And basically, it's just not, with everything else, you can just spray it, let it sit for a little bit. So we're just letting them know, don't spray any of this directly on the surface, but spray it on your paper towel, on your cloth, whatever you may have, paper towels in this case, and then just wipe the device down with any of these products. Yes. He sent one out specifically about like an alcohol-based product, which is what a lot of our Yellowhammer is. So we have let all the principals know that and to forward that information to the teachers. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of the fiscal year 2020-2021 Madison County budget as submitted.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the FY 2020-2021 Madison County School System budget. Any further discussion other than what we've already had from Karen? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item B, I recommend approval of the fiscal year 2020-2025 capital plan as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the FY 2020-2025 five-year capital plan as submitted. Any discussion? Any additional questions of that? And again, for those listening at home and on the videotape, this can be modified. It's required by law to send this down every year, but we could change it next week, we could change it next month, depending on how funding moves and all that. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item C, I recommend approval of contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of contracts for services as submitted. Any discussion, questions? If there is none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item D,
All those, motion passes.
Item D, I recommend approval of the following personnel items as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the following personnel items as submitted. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Item E, I recommend approval of supplements as submitted.
Motion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of supplements as submitted. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that does conclude our agenda for the evening. I'm going to remove this for just a second here. I do have one item for the board to discuss before we move into executive session. Alan, would you?
Yes.
Just send two of those down that way. As I was telling one board member maybe a week or so ago, it seems like we've lurched from one issue to another throughout the last 16 or 17 months. Mr. Massey submitting his resignation, us having to go through the process to bring on a new superintendent. We just barely brought on a new superintendent, and voila, the floor fell out from underneath us, and we had COVID. And one of the things that we've kind of, and it's really more on my shoulders than anything, is we kind of let slide through the cracks, are the superintendent evaluations. I just wanted to, so I talked with Mr. Perkins and Ms. Thompson this morning or this afternoon a little bit about this, and what we've come up with is, Mr. Perkins took over on the 4th of November last year. He was barely in office before we had to shut down schools. All of the standardization and testing was canceled. The status report cards. So it's very difficult, I think, for Mr. Perkins to develop goals and objectives and tie those to any specific quantitative things. So what we're going to do is we've handed out, or I've asked Mr. Minsky, Dr. Minsky, to hand out the evaluation forms to the leadership team, and that'll be done and handed back to us no later than the 15th of October. Mr. Perkins is going to provide us with his goals and his, tell me what, Alan? Self-assessment, self-evaluation report by the 15th of October as well. And then we will conduct and do our evaluation of Mr. Perkins per the schedule in paragraph 3. And then we will fall back into what is in the resolution for the following year, where he will give us his goals and objectives in March, and then follow that up in October, just like it is laid out in the resolution. But I just wanted to pass that on to you all this evening so that you have that information and what we're planning to do. Any questions on that? Any concerns? Any comments? Okay. If there are none, we do have an executive session. Ms. Thompson, do you have a?
You don't need a certification.
You don't need a certification for litigation? Okay.
It's to discuss negotiations.
Right, okay. So we are going to go into an executive session. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the board before we adjourn into executive session?
I just wonder if Todd can fix the temperature in here.
Was wondering the same thing. We can do the executive session in here. It should not take us that long to discuss what we have to discuss, so we should be out of here by no later than 7 o'clock. We don't have anything to vote on after executive session, so we will only be re-adjourning to adjourn for the evening. But you are welcome to stay and come on back in here after a few more minutes. Anything else? If there is none, I'll enter.
I was going to just
Go ahead.
say, I don't know where to say thank you or good job or exactly what, but I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I have had 0 complaints about returning to school. I've actually
Good point.
had people thankful, and not just thankful, but pleasantly surprised at the level of communication, at the ability to trust the communication. Things went down exactly the way people said they were going to do. So I like I said, I don't know whether to say thank you or good job or congratulations or whew, but I will say that from District 2, I've not heard a single complaint. I've had people reach out for the purpose of just saying how pleased they were and how safe they felt and how they feel like this moving forward is a plan we can work with, so.
Angie, good point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I too have not had any complaints from any parents so far. I've seen a couple things on Facebook, but, beyond that, I have not personally received anything.
And I would like to just say that our schools have done a tremendous job of putting in place protocols, welcoming the kids back. Our teachers have done a tremendous job of preparing and getting ready for kids to come back. And I've been to the vast majority of our schools within the last 2 days, and it's been a great experience seeing our kids back in school.
And I did have a teacher say to me this morning that it was really appreciated that the children were coming back, half of them at a time, because they felt like that gave them an opportunity for some personal time with the children, and they hope we could do that every year. So.
Yeah, I even read on a post from one of the teachers out of Harvest Elementary, and she posted this really eloquent, positive thing on there. But one of the comments in her post was that even at the pre-K level, they're not having any problem with the masks. And I think that's pretty cool, pretty good. But everybody's been wearing them for a while, so I really didn't suspect that we would have a problem with that. And I think most of the kids are conditioned at this point to understand why we're wearing them and what the need for it is. So. Kudos to the parents as well. But yeah, thank you, Angie, for bringing that up. I'm remiss for missing that. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll give the room a few moments to clear out, and then we'll begin.
Okay.